Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine 2023 was awarded to two scientists. Using this exciting opportunity, I would like to share with you how to enjoy reading a scientific paper that led to the Nobel Prize. When we use this approach, we will not only enjoy the Nobel announcement, but also we will learn how to read a very good scientific paper, especially in a field that you're not familiar with. Hi everyone, welcome to the Foundational Skills in Life Sciences podcast. We discuss the skills that the life science scholars learn, use, and improve throughout the professional activities. Your benefit is expressed in my motto, learn the skills, enjoy academic life. I'm your host, Dr. Synaptologica. Synaptologica, or synaptology, is a study of synapses where a communication occurs between nerve cells. I'm a neuroscientist and a professor at a university in the United States. Today's episode. Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to two scientists, Dr. Katalin Karikó and Dr. Drew Weissman. According to the announcement by the Nobel Prize Committee, the award was, quote, for their discoveries concerning nucleoside-base modifications that enabled the development of effective messenger RNA vaccines against COVID-19, close quote. We know that such vaccines were developed very rapidly during the COVID-19 pandemic, and they contributed to protecting people and saving many lives. In this mini-series of episodes, I'm not going to give you a lecture about the messenger RNA vaccines. I'm not an expert in this field at all, and you must have read many good news articles about this topic elsewhere, written by experts and by good science journalists. Also, you could have read some interesting personal stories related to the Nobel Prize Laureates. They will serve you well in giving you interest in the specific topic. They will be helpful as a general science education tool as well. But they are not the points of my episodes. Section 1. What we do in these episodes. Instead, I would like to do something that might not be common. It is to show you how to learn something new from the news about the Nobel Prize. More specifically, what we would like to do in these episodes is to read just one paper written by the Nobel Laureates of this year. We will focus on the very first paper that started the groundbreaking work, which eventually led to the Nobel Prize. We will not read the entire paper, but we will read the parts of the paper that will be beneficial for our learning. To be exact, we will read 3 sections of the paper, the abstract, the introduction, and the discussion. But it will be a little challenging for most of us if we start reading the paper without any prior knowledge about what is written and what is discussed in the paper. To help ourselves understand the paper before reading it, I will suggest one approach. It will help you read the paper, even if it is in a field that you know just a little or nothing at all. Section 2. Short overview of the episodes. I have prepared multiple episodes for you. In today's episode and the next, we will talk about the goals of reading a paper written by the Nobel Laureates and why it is helpful for us to read it. In the following episodes, I will show you what to do and how to do it step by step. We will use the example of this year's Nobel Prize. These steps include how to read a paper, of course, but they also include how to learn the high-quality background knowledge in a reliable manner, even before reading the Nobel Laureates paper. After talking about the method for reading such a paper, I will explain why I designed the method specifically in the way that I will demonstrate. The method was based on the lesson that I learned from my experience when I started reading papers. I have 3 side notes here. Side note 1. The official website of the Nobel Prize says, quote, a person or organization awarded the Nobel Prize is called Nobel Prize Laureate, close quote. Based on this statement, we will call those people Nobel Prize Laureates, or Nobel Laureates, or simply laureates. We could also call them Nobel Prize awardees, but not Nobel Prize winners. Side note 2. When I say papers or articles in most of my episodes, I mean the primary research papers in life sciences. In such papers, the authors report some new experimental findings, and they also discuss them. Before being published, such papers were peer-reviewed by at least 2 experts in the field. So the primary research papers report something new, and those papers are unique, and they were evaluated for reliability to some extent before publication. Although there can be a few unreliable primary research papers. In some cases, the papers or articles also include review papers in life sciences. The authors in review papers do not show any new experimental data. Instead, they will typically discuss the results that were already reported by them and the other authors. I will try adding review, specifically as review papers, when we discuss those papers. But when I say papers or articles, they will not include the presentation abstracts in meetings, the meeting reports, or news articles. In this mini-series of reading a paper by Nobel laureates, we are talking about a primary research paper. Side note 3. We will read the very first paper written by the Nobel laureates that eventually led to the Nobel Prize. We will mention the paper many times in these episodes. The wording is too long. The very first paper written by the Nobel laureates that eventually led to the Nobel Prize. Let's call such a paper briefly as the milestone article. The word milestone is used as an important work or document in the history of a specific field. For example, in one physics journal, Physical Review Letters, the editors selected milestone letters, quote, that have made long-lived contributions to physics, either by announcing significant discoveries or by initiating new areas of research, close quote. Here is another example. The U.S. National Archives has a list of documents called milestone documents. Those documents shaped the American history. Based on these pieces of information, I wanted to call our first important paper written by the Nobel laureates a milestone paper. But there seems to be a company called Milestone Paper, and it will be good to avoid using the term repeatedly here. So we will call our laureates paper the milestone article. If we have an opportunity to discuss multiple papers in later episodes, we will call them milestone article 1, milestone article 2, and so on. Now, let's get back to the main part of the talk. Section 3. One assumption before reading the milestone article. When we talk about reading the milestone article, some of you might be thinking that you will not be able to read such a paper because you could think you're not an expert in that specific field. Also, you might think that you do not have enough knowledge in the field to know what was new when you read the paper. Rest assured. Here, I would like to tell you our assumption for our episodes. Our assumption is that most of us are not familiar with the topic of the Nobel Prize. This is a reasonable assumption, and I think this is a very helpful assumption for us too. For example, this year's topic was in the field of immunology. The basic science there was about how to let the ribonucleic acid, or RNA, avoid activating the immune responses in the body. The applications of this basic science result included the development of messenger RNA vaccines. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I learned a little about the messenger RNA vaccines because they were developed very quickly and they were very effective. But basically, I do not know much about immunology. Each year, the Nobel Prize is awarded to scientists, usually in different fields. So most likely, we will be outside the topic field almost every time the Nobel Prize is announced. Then I would say that not having the necessary knowledge for understanding a paper is actually good for our purpose. Why? Section 4, our goals. Before answering the question, why is it good not to have the necessary knowledge for understanding a paper, I think it is good time for me to clarify our goals in the episodes about reading. We have two goals. Section 4-1, our first goal. Our first goal is to read the milestone article and learn how an exciting new finding was reported in laureates' own words. All the primary research papers in life sciences report something new. The new content can be 1. New experimental results, 2. New experimental methods, 3. New viewpoints, and 4. New tests comparing existing ideas or data. When you pick any life science paper, it is supposed to contain something new. The novelty in a randomly chosen paper can be a small step in the field, but it must be something that no researcher has reported before. But the milestone article by the Nobel Laureates must have been very new, and it was, by definition, epoch-making. We know it because the paper led to the Nobel Prize later. It is rare for us to witness a novelty of such a degree in any paper. The Nobel Prize announcement is an excellent opportunity for us to read such an outstanding paper. By reading the milestone article, we can learn the new things in the field, of course, but we are not aiming at becoming an expert in the specific field of the laureates here. Most importantly, we would like to learn how an exciting new finding was reported in laureates' own words. This is our first goal. Section 4-2, our second goal. Our second goal is to learn how to read a paper. This second goal is bigger and longer term than our first goal. It will take more time and practice to achieve this goal, but once achieved, its effect on us will be greater. I admit that it is a little vague to say that we will learn how to read a paper. To give you a more concrete idea about this goal, I would like to point out that it is deeply related to the question that we mentioned earlier today. Why is it good not to have the necessary knowledge for understanding a paper? Please let me explain this goal a little more. Section 5. Why it is good if you are unfamiliar with the field. Here's my answer to this question. By reading a paper in an unfamiliar field, we will learn the skill of searching for key information within a paper. In my view, the practical way of learning how to read a paper is to learn this skill. Let me explain further. When we read a paper outside of our familiar fields, we will start from the initial condition. We do not have enough background information for understanding the topic. Sometimes we do not know anything about the topic. When we start reading such a paper, we will be desperately looking for key information within the paper. Just give it a try if you have not read a paper before, or if you have not read a paper outside of your favorite field. Pick a paper randomly and start reading it. I'm sure you will be thinking something like, what is this field? What is this paper all about? Who are these authors? Are they experts? What are the authors saying? These will be a few of your very basic, naive, but important questions to you. We need the answers to such questions to understand the content. We will look for words, sentences, or parts of the paper in search of such key information. Let's talk about what we mean by the key information and how we proceed when we desperately look for it. I have had many opportunities to read papers outside of my field of expertise. After getting used to it, I usually find myself proceeding in 3 stages of searching for key information. First, we will look for the background information even before knowing what the authors did. Here's the first set of practical information that we would like to search for within the paper. Keywords of the paper, definitions of those keywords, and what is known in the field. This first stage will also include an answer to the question, are the authors the experts in the field? But we do not have to worry about the authors when we read our milestone paper. They are the Nobel Laureates, so they must know a thing or two in the field. Second, after learning a little about the background information, we now want to know what the laureates wanted to accomplish in the paper. Here's the second set of practical information that we would like to search for within the paper. What is unknown in the field, the question the laureates addressed in the paper, and the major hypothesis of the paper. Third, after learning a little about what the laureates wanted to accomplish, we now want to know what they did and what they learned. Here is the third set of practical information that we would like to search for within the paper. The major results, how the results were different from the previous results in the field, in other words, in what way their results were new, and the implications of the results. When we read a paper outside our familiar fields, we will search for the above information actively. We might read only the first part of the paper slowly and repeatedly to obtain the first set of information. We might go back and forth in different parts of the paper many times trying to find the second and the third sets of information. Why do we do them? That is because without knowing them, we will not be able to understand the core parts of the paper well. So those 3 sets of information are very important. Side note 4. The 3 sets of information are so important for us that I wanted to give them a specific name. At first, I wanted to call them the fundamental questions. But there seem to be many books with titles including fundamental questions. After thinking a little bit, I decided to use the Latin translation of the name. We will call the 3 sets of information collectively as Quaestiones Fundamentales, or fundamental questions, or simply as Quaestiones. I like this name personally because when I was a college student, I used to write down my scientific questions in a notebook, and I named the notebook Quaestiones. Section 6. How to take advantage of being unfamiliar with the topic. The good thing about not knowing the specific field is that it forces us to look for the answers to our Quaestiones. And when we find the key information within the paper, we will feel relieved and satisfied. This experience will help us realize that they are important. If this is your first experience reading a paper outside of your field, you will do the information search within the paper unconsciously, without knowing it. How can we take full advantage of being unfamiliar with the topic? I would like to advise you to do the information search consciously. This conscious information search is important. You will remember the points in the Quaestiones, and you will look for the answers within the paper. This way, we will learn where to pay attention to when we read papers. This is precious training for us. Once you learn this skill of conscious information search within a paper, you can use the skill in many activities because this will serve as a common framework of thinking. For example, you can use the skill when you do the following 9 activities. 1. Reading papers. 2. Reading grant proposals. 3. Listening to seminars. 4. Listening to poster presentations. 5. Writing papers. 6. Writing grant proposals. 7. Presenting seminars. 8. Presenting posters. 9. Discussing with your colleagues, and so on. There are many more activities in our professional lives that we can apply this skill to. Simply said, you can use the skill to understand the important parts when you receive the inputs. You can also use the skill to emphasize the important parts when you prepare and deliver the outputs. This skill of conscious attention to key information will be foundational in all those input-output activities. And learning this skill was our second goal of the episodes. Side note 4. Many points in our Quaestiones Fundamentales, or fundamental questions, are shared with the questions that I mentioned in the previous episode. I would ask them to a graduate student in a comprehensive exam of a doctoral program. We discussed such comprehensive exam questions in our episode 2. Please enjoy it if you have not done so. Those comprehensive exam questions are about the key points that we would like to see addressed in a fellowship proposal or a grant proposal. Those points will also need to be addressed in reading and writing scientific papers. This is the reason why our Quaestiones for reading a paper are very similar to the questions that a graduate student needs to address in a comprehensive exam. In my view, our Quaestiones are a little broader, so they will include the comprehensive exam questions as a part. I would like to expand the list as the episodes progress. Section 7, Summary. Let's wrap up. We have discussed what we will do in the episodes related to the Nobel Prize announcement. It is to read one paper written by the Nobel Laureates. To be specific, we will read the milestone article that had an outstanding impact and that eventually led to the Nobel Prize. We also talked about the 2 goals of the episodes. They are, first, to read the milestone article and learn how an exciting new finding was reported in laureates' own words, and second, to learn how to read a paper by learning the skill to search for key information within a paper consciously. And using the skill, we answer the fundamental questions that we call questiones fundamentales. In my view, the skill of conscious information search within a paper is one of the foundational skills in life sciences. This is it for today. In the next episode, we will talk about why it is good for us to read the milestone article. We will also talk about who this reading experience is good for. Now, your action. Please send me an email. I would like to communicate with you about your comments, suggestions, and criticisms. Constructive ones, please. My email address is ideas@synaptologica.com. Thank you for joining me in today's episode of Foundational Skills in Life Sciences. I am Dr. Synaptologica. I'm looking forward to connecting with you again. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.